Story 1. This all happens around Christmas New Year's, but I just found this subreddit and am obsessed with it now, so I have to share my story. My grandparents immigrated to Canada from Italy in the 1970s and opened a restaurant. When they passed away, the restaurant went to my parents. Over the decades, they grew and expanded it. I have been working at the restaurant since I was 15. Over time, my parents got older and eventually retired, becoming snowbirds going to Florida for the winters. They left the restaurant to me a few years ago, but still retained a small percentage ownership as an additional revenue stream along with their savings and annuities. As soon as I gained control, I pretty much modernized the old place. I remodeled the restaurant, changed the logo, reached out to local and national papers to put out ads, invited food critics, bloggers, vloggers, etc. It was very slow at first, and I began to worry that the loan I took out to do all this was the biggest mistake I had ever made, and that I had ruined 3 generations of my family's business. Eventually, it began to work, and a local semi-famous YouTuber featured us in one of his videos. That was the catalyst for more people to come and review, and eventually, we were seeing 5-10 times the business we usually get, even on a Monday. We became a hot spot for major events, and it wasn't uncommon for a celebrity to visit. On those nights, I even arranged for special high-profile chefs to visit and cook for our guests, which costs a fortune. So during the holidays, we were beyond packed. It got to the point where people would have had to make reservations in July to get a table in December. This process took years to get to where we are now. When it gets busy, I don't just sit in the back office. I'm on the floor doing whatever needs to be done. Even if that means I greet people, bus tables, or even mop the floors. Other nights, when we have high-profile guests or events, I'm in a blazer and acting in charge, though. On one night, a group of 6 women walked in. 5 of them looked like they were still in their early 20s, and the head of the group looked like she was in her mid-20s. My best theory is she was one of the other 4 girls' older sister, or possibly an older sorority sister to incoming college freshmen. I was greeting at the door. As they were walking up, the leader was telling the younger women how this place is awesome, the food is amazing, and there might even be celebrities here. When she came up to me, she told me she needed a table for 6. I replied, "Of course, can I please get the name on the reservation?" She looked at me and said, "Oh, I didn't make one, but it's okay. The owner is a personal friend of mine. He said he always has 1 or 2 tables that he keeps open for special guests and said we can have one of those tonight." Now, generally, this is true of many high-profile restaurants, and lately, I've been doing that as well. But I had no clue who this woman was, and she definitely never spoke to me about any of this. I got that she was trying to get in without a reservation, but she literally picked the worst person she could possibly talk to and try this with. I told her, "I am sorry, but we cannot seat anyone without a reservation. As you can see, we do not have any seats available." I didn't want to go all out and say I'm the owner and we have never spoken before, so I never promised you a thing, because I didn't want to embarrass her in front of the other girls she was with. At first. She then went on and said out loud to one of the other girls to take a picture of me, saying she will speak to the owner and make sure I'm either cleaning the toilet or fired by the end of the week. The other girls, following her lead, were like, "Yeah, kiss your minimum wage job goodbye." I'm not sure if they were in on it with her, or if they honestly thought she knew the owner. The leader then went on and said, "Look, you can just give us a table, or I can make life very difficult for you. This is not worth losing your job." She was constantly pointing, trying to put me down, saying things like, "Obviously, you're not anyone here because if you were, you would know who I am and never even try to tell me anything other than yes or of course." She was constantly trying to belittle me and get that table. At this point, it was a long day for me. And the way I saw it, I had 3 options. 1, tell her I'm the owner and just call her out on all of this. 2, just give her the table and let it be. 3, teach the leader and her little followers a lesson. I chose option 3 for various reasons, including some personality flaws I am aware that I have, but I like to think it was at least 50% really wanting to teach her a lesson. I smiled at her, said, "Of course, ma'am, follow me, please." And I gave her one of the 3 tables we keep open in case a celebrity comes, which happens from time to time. I told her I apologize for everything and she is right. It would be simpler to just give her the table. I also told her that the first 3 rounds of drinks will be complimentary. I sat them down and personally served them. As they were sitting down, I told them we do need one of their credit cards and IDs just to keep on file, and we will give it back to them before they leave. The leader gave me her cards and told the younger women that tonight was on her. I took their orders and got them their free drinks, and told them that due to how busy we are tonight, there might be a delay on the food. All the girls were thinking of and cared about were their free rounds. They ordered 3 rounds, and still, no food arrived. They eventually called me and asked me to check on it, the whole time giving me the world's most nasty attitude since even before they ordered. I told them I will check on it, but also asked if they would like any more drinks. They ordered 2 more rounds by the time the appetizers arrived. At this point, they were all intoxicated, having done nothing but drink on an empty stomach most of the night, and only having had salads after. As more food arrived, more drinks were ordered. What these girls never realized was that they were at our VIP table, which alone costs a few thousand just to sit in, but I didn't charge them for that. What I did charge them for was all the super expensive cocktails they had throughout the whole night, except for the first 3 rounds. In addition, the table they were sitting at, as mentioned, was VIP, so the menus were a bit different. For one, they don't say prices on them, trade secret. And in addition, it had certain higher-end menu options such as white truffle, black caviar dishes, and specially imported West Coast oysters, among other things. At one point in the night, I was honestly rethinking what I was doing and thought I might be going too far with these poor girls. They might not know any better, but some things reassured me throughout the night. For example, one of the younger women asked me if I felt like my life was worthless since all I ever became was a waiter. Also, one of my other employees told me how they were discussing how to mess with me to the point that they can just do this whenever they want, and I will know to always give them a table. I also overheard them say, "He's cute, but I would never date a waiter like that. He is such a pushover." There were a bunch of comments like that the whole night, so I kept on with their life lesson. By the end of the night, each girl racked up a bill in the range of $500–600 per person. When I handed the leader the bill of $4,232.23 with tax and tip included, of course, I have never seen anyone sober up so quickly. She went from laughing and giggling with her friends to nearly in tears. She called me over instantly and asked if this was some kind of joke. I took the bill, looked it over, and said, "Oh, yes, I apologize. I will get you the correct bill in a moment." Again, she felt a complete sense of relief, thinking she got someone else's bill, called me an idiot, and went on to talking to her friends. To be fair, I did make a mistake. I did forget to count her 8th order of a dozen oysters that costs about $120 per order, so I gladly just went back and added it to the order. When I went back to give her the correct bill, she flipped out again, going crazy. I just asked if there was something on this bill that she didn't order. She and the girls, in shock, went over every single line of the bill, including the first few lines that show their original 3 rounds, which say complimentary. They then took out their phones and went over everything line by line for the 100th time, adding everything up. Extremely rattled, the leader simply said, "1 second, I need to use the washroom." Part of me thought that she might just pull a dine and dash and leave the younger women with the bill. But kind of low-key, I did remind her we had her ID and credit card without making it obvious. I thought she was going to run out on the bill. 10 minutes later, she comes back with new makeup, obviously. She had been crying and makes up a whole story about how the food was awful, the drinks were bad, and so on, demanding that as a bare minimum. I should cut the bill in half with the agreement that the younger women will chip in, even though she originally told them the night would be on her. Then, as if a light bulb went off in her head, she again mentioned her relationship with the owner as if it were to give me additional incentive to cut the bill in half. Holding back a grin at this point, I told her no. Just no, I can't change the bill. She whips out her phone and shows me a series of texts with someone called my restaurant's name owner, which I realized was what she was doing in the bathroom. Just probably changed one of the other women's contact names and deleted previous texts to start this new script. I read them, then clicked on the contact and told her that's not the owner's cell number. Her reply was, "He has multiple phones for business and stuff. Of course, you don't know all his numbers." I remember thinking, wow, this girl thought of everything except I'm the actual owner. I told her, "How about this? If we call him and he says that it's okay to take 50% off the bill, then I'll do it." Her reply was yelling and screaming, where the few remaining customers all began to start looking, and I knew it was the right time to end this. I told her, already in a less accommodating voice, "Cut it out, young lady. You don't know the owner, you have never been here before, and if you keep yelling, I will call the police." Her demeanor changed, and she was trying to defend herself the best she could. My reply to her weak comebacks was, "My grandparents founded this restaurant. My family has been running this place for generations. I have worked here almost my entire life. I am the one and only owner of this restaurant, and I have never once seen you, heard of you. And I definitely never made a stranger I don't know and have never met before tonight any promises." The younger women were just frozen and didn't even know how to react. The leader was in tears. I said, "Now I gave you the table you wanted, one of your specially reserved tables for high-end clients, which I didn't charge you for, and I gave you 3 rounds of free drinks. If you don't pay your bill, I will call the cops and hand them your ID." In tears, the leader signed the bill, and the younger women took out their purses to give her whatever cash they had, which equaled maybe a couple of $100s, with the promise to pay her back more. 2 days later, a man walks into my restaurant fuming and asks one of my bartenders to speak to me. I was in the back office for a bit working, so he waited a good half hour for me. He was the leader's father. She was with him too, keeping her head down. I took them both to my office and showed him highlights of the security cameras, which had especially good quality audio because they were in the VIP area, which we had to keep good records of because we have had other unrelated incidents before. So I showed him most of it. Their comments, their orders, everything. When all was said and done, he stormed out with her and was yelling at her the whole time they were walking away. Haven't seen or heard from either of them since. But the original bill, I gave them the one that didn't count the $120 oysters, is framed on my desk. Side note, I didn't lose as much overhead on the table and 3 rounds as you might think. The table was originally supposed to be empty, so I didn't lose anything since I didn't expect to gain anything to begin with, and the overhead for the food and other drinks more than covered the loss on the 3 free first rounds. I thought about posting this on Nuclear Revenge, but I read some of the stories there, and I think making this girl pay a few thousand and give her a life lesson does not qualify as some of the revenge. There are life-ending revenge stories and losses in the tens or hundreds of thousands. Story 4. Years ago, my roommate's, let's call him Pete girlfriend's little brother, let's call him John, would tag along when his sister was hanging out with my roommate at my apartment. Yeah, it was weird, but let's ignore why he was there for this story. He was there so often that he got comfortable going and getting things out of the kitchen for himself. Little snacks, glasses of water, soda, etc. I confess that I didn't tolerate him all that well. One night, all the roommates were home, we all had friends over, and it was a full house. We decided to watch a movie. Halfway through the movie, John starts complaining about being thirsty, and then asks, "Moose, can you get me a glass of water?" I looked over, annoyed, and snapped, "John, you know where the cups are? You know where the kitchen is. Go get your own water." You would think this would be the end of it, and he would have just done it himself. No, he was determined to have someone wait on him. Turning to my roommate, he asked again, "Pete, can you get me a glass of water?" Pete stood up, said sure, and walked into the kitchen. I called after him and said to make the guy get his own water. Pete called back that it was okay, and he didn't mind doing it. He returned a moment later and set a glass of water on the coffee table next to John. John went to take a drink, yelped, turned to glare at Pete, and in a very nasty tone, said, "I didn't ask for hot water." Pete calmly looked over and said, "You didn't ask for cold water either. You heard what Moose said, get your own water next time."